Today we are going to be going over how to solve algebraic equations. Let's start with this example. 3x plus 8 equals 29. So whenever we solve algebraic equations, we always want to have one thing on one side of the equal sign equal to one thing on the other side. So I'm noticing in this example we have two things, they're called terms, so two terms on the left side of the equal sign and one on the other. Because I have these two things, that means I need to get rid of one of them, so I only have one on the left. To get rid of one of these things, I need to use inverse operations, or in other words, opposites. So I have plus here. The opposite of plus is minus. So that means I need to subtract one of these. Well, if I look at the right side of the equal sign, I have 29. Just 29. No x's, it's only the number. So that tells me I need to subtract this 8. Because if I wanted to do minus 3x here, and then I'd have to do it on the other side, I can't do minus 3x from 29. So I need to do minus 8. And whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, I need to do on the other side as well. So then I just do my subtraction now. I have 3x, I didn't take any x's away, so I still have 3x. Now I have a positive 8 minus 8. So that means I'm left with 0 equals, then 29 minus 8 is 21. Now this plus 0 here doesn't change anything, so I can just get rid of it. Now I am left with 3x equals 21. When I have a number written right next to a letter like this, a variable, that's the same thing as saying 3 times x. So just like before up here when I did opposites, the opposite of plus is minus, I'll do the opposite here too. I have a multiply, opposite of multiplying is dividing. So if I have times 3, I will divide by 3. And what I do on one side of the equal sign, I have to do on the other side as well. So now I can divide. 3 divided by 3, that's 1, times x equals 21 divided by 3, that's 7. So now I don't need this times 1 here. That doesn't change anything. Whenever I multiply a number by 1, it always just equals itself. So I can just get rid of this now. So now in the end, I am left with x equals 7. Here is another example. 4x minus 9 equals 27. I'm going to solve this the exact same way I did before. I'm going to use inverse operations or opposites. This time though, my problem is a little bit different because instead of having adding here, I have subtract. Now the opposite of subtracting is adding, so I'm going to be adding, and I look over here and see I have just a number. It's just a 27. So I am going to work with just the number over here, the 9, because I can't add x's to just a number. I need to add x's only with x's. So if I have a minus 9 here, I will do plus 9. And what I do on one side of the equation, I have to do on the other as well. So I add 9 on the right side of the equal sign. So the whole reason why I do these opposites is so I can get rid of one of these things here. because like I talked about earlier, I want one thing to equal one thing. Here I have two things equals one, so I need to get rid of these. So in other words, I want to be adding 0, because if I add 0, I really don't need that. I can just get rid of that. So if you add and you end up with a number like this, 4x plus 18 equals 36, that tells you something is not quite right. The whole reason why we're adding is to get rid of 1. I'm still left with 2 here. What you really need to do is think about this minus 9 as a negative 9. If I'm at negative 9 and I add a positive 9, that does not equal 18. That actually equals 0. So now I have 4x plus 0 equals 36. This plus 0 doesn't change anything, so I can get rid of it. Perfect. Now I'm exactly where I need to be. I have one thing on the left equals one thing on the right. I will keep doing my inverse operations, but now I can divide. I have 4 times x on this side, so opposite of times, divide. I have times 4, so now I'll divide by 4 on both sides. 4 divided by 4, 1 times x equals 36 divided by 4, 9. This 1 times x I really don't need, doesn't change anything, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it now. Now I have my answer. X equals 9. I have here now 4 problems for you to try. So in a second, you can pause the video, work on these on your own. Then when you are done, play the video and check your answers. These are the 4 answers that you should have gotten. X equals 9, x equals 4, x equals 8, and x equals 3. If you got something wrong on one of these, check your work and see if you can figure out where you made your mistake. There are a couple different situations that you might find when solving equations that make it just a little bit trickier to take it to the next level. So here we have 16x plus 8 equals 12. I'm going to solve this the same way I did before. Here I have plus 8, so I will do minus 8, the opposite. I'll do it on both sides. I'm left with 16x plus 0 equals 4. I don't need this plus 0, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that now. I'm left now with 16x equals 4. Well, I know the 16 right next to the x is really saying 16 times x. So if I have times, opposite of that is divide. So I will divide by 16. Okay, 16 divided by 16, 1 times x equals, now this is where I see a lot of mistakes. A lot of people tell me 4 divided by 16, that equals 4. Actually, no, what you did was 16 divided by 4. But what this says up here is 4 divided by 16. It's a very different problem. You get very different answers. So be sure that you are solving the correct problem. You should get 1 times x equals 0.25. Or in other words, x equals 0.25. You also may encounter negative numbers. We solve these problems just like we would solve the other ones. So start off, I have plus 7, opposite of plus, minus. I do that on both sides. I'm left with negative 3x, 7 minus 7, 0, equals 33. I don't need this plus 0, so I'll get rid of that. Now I have negative 3x equals 33. I know this negative 3 next to the x means times, so negative 3 times x equals 33. I'm going to do this the exact same way I did before. The opposite of times, that's divide. So I'll divide by the number that I have here. Notice it's not just a 3, it's a negative 3. So I need to divide by negative 3. What I do on one side, I need to do to the other. So now, negative 3 divided by negative 3, well, any number divided by itself is always 1 times x equals, now over here I have 33 divided by negative 3. Well, I know that 33 divided by 3 is 11. Then now I just have to decide if it's positive or negative. Well, in my problem I have 1 negative. If I have 1 negative, that means my answer will be negative. I don't need this times 1. I'll get rid of it. So now I'm left with my answer. X equals negative 11. Another way you might encounter negatives is like this. Negative x plus 12 equals 13. Well, let's go through this together. Plus 12 opposite, minus 12, minus 12. Negative x plus 0 equals 1. So I don't need the plus 0. Let's get rid of it. Now I have negative x equals 1. I'm so close. The thing is, I don't want this negative. In the end, I want just a normal positive x equals something. So I need to get rid of this negative. I can't just cross it off. I have to do something with the negative. When I have negative x, that's the same as negative 1 times x. So instead of a negative x up here, I can actually change it to negative 1 times x. Now I'll solve it the same way that I did before. And I have a times negative 1. Opposite of that is divide. My whole number is negative 1, so I'll divide by negative 1 on both sides. Negative 1 divided by negative 1, that's 1 times x equals 1 divided by negative 1. Well, 1, I have 1 negative in my problem, which means that my answer is going to be negative. I don't need this times 1 here, so in the end, I'm left with x equals negative 1. Now again, I have a few problems for you to try on your own. Pause the video, try it, then play the video again to check your answers. Here are the answers that you should have had. X equals 0.5, x equals negative 5, and x equals negative 42. If you got any of these wrong, look back at your work and see if you can figure out where you made the mistakes. That is all I am going to do for this video today. Stay tuned and you can check out my next video that shows you how to solve equations if you start off with 2 things on one side of the equation and 2 things on the other side of the equal sign as well.